Hello and welcome back to Redstone Zero to Hero. Today we are going to talk about flip-flops, which are not the shoe in this case. They are actually a redstone component. So, the problem with buttons, you hit them, they turn on, they turn back off. But I want you to stay on. The answer, a lever. Well, but now how do I turn you off again? I have to just hit the lever. Well, what if I want to have a lever over here? I can't have both, because if one's on, it's always on. I need to be able to change the state of this remotely. Well, there's an answer for that. It is the flip-flop. So I've got a couple of designs I want to show you, and we'll talk about how they work. So this is one of the older designs. This is the one that it was my go-to design, really. If you look at my older battleground recreation maps, you'll see quite a few of these if you go digging around in the redstone underneath. So the way this works is you've got two pistons facing each other with a block in the middle. The block's on top, you've got these torches, and then this is your input. It just has to connect to the redstone dust here. So you could have it on the same level, you could have it, push a redstone block down above it, anything like that'll work. You just have to activate the redstone on top here. When you do that, it turns the torches off, and then they'll pop back on as soon as the button is released. And in doing so, the pistons will fire again because now they're being powered, and it will push the block across into the next position, and then the next time you press it, it'll push it back, press it again, push it back. And the way that actually activates something is you can see underneath one of the spots I have a torch. So when it moves over this spot, the torch will actually begin to power this redstone. So let's see it in action. So if we go here, get a good view. So you can see the power turns on, torches go off. When they pop back on, it moves back and forth. So as you can see, over the top of the torch, it's now powering this, and I get, with a one button press, I'm getting constant power to this. And if I press it again, constant lack of power. So it's like a remote lever. And the nice thing about this too, is with these flip-flops, you can go and, I could put a button over there and a button over there, and both buttons would turn this both on and off remotely, no matter what the other state is in. Because it's a button, it can only be pressed for, a few ticks. So basically, flip-flops are just a memory cell, like this one, where if I press this button, it will change state, and it will remember that state until changed again with this one. The difference being, all inputs can change the state from the same spot. So it's like this button being connected to this block, and this button being connected to this block. It's just a kind of a one-sided memory cell, where you can manipulate everything from one singular input and just run multiple buttons or whatever off of it. It's a small difference, but it's an important one. The next design comes from when they added repeater locking to the game. And this works by, you press the button, torch goes off. Torch goes off, this becomes unpowered. When this becomes unpowered, it unlocks this repeater. As you can see with the bar across it, it is locked. When it unlocks this repeater, the torch, repeater, dust, you see it's all powered. This repeater will become powered, and then the button will depress after its couple of ticks. The torch will come back on, this will come back on, and it will relock it in the powered state. Now, when this is powered, it'll be powering this block and this torch, meaning this torch will turn off, so will all this. So this repeater is actually not receiving power anymore, but since it's locked in the on state, it stays on. Press it again, it unlocks it because these will both turn off. Then when it's unlocked, the power will pass out of it, allowing the torch to turn back on and get it back into the exact same state here, where it will be locked in the off state. So let's take a look and see. So you see how it powers off, changes the state of the one repeater, and then locks it again. and then all I have is dust going out into the output here. A little bit smaller, a little bit easier, a little bit cheaper, and all in all, it's a nice little design that was added when they allowed us to start locking these repeaters. Next is an interesting design here. This guy right here is actually tileable. So I could line these guys up next to each other, directly touching, and you could still work them. Now I will say it may become a little tricky to get power into the end here without powering the other ones, but it's a good one. So this works with a pulse shortener. So this right here, this little area, actually shortens the pulse of this button down to 1 tick. And what happens when a piston receives a 1 tick pulse, it will push the block out and then retract, but it'll leave the block there even though this is a sticky piston. Because it receives that tiny little pulse, it'll just bloop, pop it out and then leave it there. It receives another pulse, another 1 tick pulse, and it will then reach out and pull the block that it left out back in. So it's easiest to explain this by showing it to you. So if you look, see how it popped it out and just left it there. And I'll show you. This is a sticky piston. So if I come back out here, hit it again, it'll reach out and pull it back in. This mechanic by itself, that 1 tick pulse to give pistons this behavior, super useful by itself. But when you pair it with the idea that you can drop a block on top of this gap here to allow this torch to pass power out, makes it really powerful to create a flip-flop. So you've got this tileable flip-flop here that's pretty quick. It's a little loud, but it's pretty quick. And you can see with one button press I can change the state and basically make this button act like a lever. Nothing wrong with that. Okay, so this next design was added with hoppers and droppers and all that and the comparators. And this is probably my new favorite. It's super small, as you can see. It's all of 2x3 and it is 1 block wide. Very small. It's a little expensive in the fact that, you need, droppers, which aren't too bad because they're really just stone and the redstone, so they're not bad, but it's the hopper that's expensive. The hopper and the comparator that are expensive. So, a little bit more on the expensive side, but it's super easy. You just put this hopper facing into a dropper, facing up into another dropper, facing over into a chest. And as long as you've got this loop configuration here, you can put this comparator coming out of any side of this dropper right here. It can come out of this side, it can come out of the back like I have it, or this side, so it doesn't need to be this one direction. You can actually make it more into like a block shape, like a 2x2x2 sort of configuration, if that works better in your build. The only thing is you need to supply power to this top dropper. So I just popped a button right on the side as a demonstration. So as you can see, nothing in the hopper, nothing in the chest. Oh, I put a trap chest, so the trap chest actually activates it. Let me remedy that, because that's going to make a difference. Okay, so now when I open the chest, it's not going to activate anything. Okay, so if we take a look, nothing in the chest, nothing in the hopper, nothing in the bottom dropper. We just dropped one item into this top dropper, and it's supplying power. Now, if I press this button, what it'll do is it will activate this dropper, firing it into the chest, which will then immediately deposit it into the hopper and into this bottom dropper. When I do that, this comparator is looking at this inventory and says, oh, there's nothing there. I don't have power. And it turns off. So as you can see, the item is now in this dropper. Press it again, it will fire it up into this, because this button actually powers both of these droppers. If you put an input in right there on the side like that, it will power both of these droppers because they're right next to each other and, high power, low power, all that good stuff. So now, since there is a torch in there, we've got our item. It goes, oh, I have one item. Refer back to the board if you need to take a look at the inventory power levels. And it goes, I need to submit 1 power out. So these flip-flops are really neat. They add a lot of versatility to our redstone and give us a whole bunch more that we can do that we couldn't do before using just simple inputs like, you know, your torch and lever and things like that. So with these guys, I mean, the applications are endless. It could be something as simple as, oh, I've got a room with lights and I want to be able to turn them off, but I want a light switch at this door and a light switch at that door. Simple. Just put a button over there, hook up a flip-flop to your lights in the ceiling, and there you go. All the way up to the more complicated things like, you know, oh, I want to make sure that when I press this button, I switch the state of a farm from, you know, automatically gathering, you know, X, Y, or Z, and now I want it to deposit it in another location, or I want to stop depositing, or I want to stop collecting even. So, a lot of uses for flip-flops. I have a, you know, a soft spot for this original one, because I used it so much when I was first learning Redstone, but I will say the new dropper flip-flop is really neat. So, hopefully you learned a little something here today. If you liked this episode, be sure to leave a like, and if you really liked it and want to be notified when I upload more videos, be sure to subscribe. Share this with your friends if you think that they could use a little more knowledge on flip-flops. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.